solidarity with the ruling party's political allies. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Mehatab. Honourable Member Mehatab.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be speaking for the first time after being elected to the 18th Lok Sabha. It's my pleasure, and I express my gratitude to my party, Bharatiya Janata Party, and my leader, Yashasvi Pradhan Mantri Narendra Modi ji, and also being interested to participate in the deliberation on budget 2024-25. This budget is for continuation of the empowerment of the newly emerged neo-middle class. The budget sounds poetry, but filled with political pragmatism. This is a budget that will take the country's villages, poor and farmers on the path of prosperity. The budget exercise is a complex intertwining of political economy, compulsion with multiple policy trade-offs, required to achieve often conflicting economic objectives while constrained by limited revenues. Despite these difficulties, a hallmark of the budget of the past few years has been stability and predictability in approach and outcomes. Key to this continuity is furthering progress on the path of fiscal consolidation. The fiscal deficit has been steadily reduced from 9.2% of the GDP in financial year 21 to a budgeted 5.1% for financial year 25. In the interim budget, now it is estimated that the fiscal deficit would be 4.9% of GDP. The earlier financial year 24 fiscal deficit has been 5.6% of 5.8%, 5.6, that's what I got. This demonstrates that the Indian economy has recovered strongly from the pandemic, but sustaining growth to attain Viksit Bharat's goal requires sustained intervention and dealing with several emerging economic and policy challenges. India has achieved higher growth in the post-pandemic period without compromising on financial stability. This year's budget is remarkably different from that of the previous 10 budgets. When the interim budget was presented last February 24, I had said, sitting that side, government is full of self-confidence to form the next government and thereby looking at the long-term picture, unquote. This budget has specifically outlined the developmental programs in the eastern states of the country. Honorable Prime Minister's vision of Purbodaya has been propounded in this year's budget, mentioning Bihar, Jharkhand, West Bengal, Odisha, and Andhra Pradesh. There was a time in not so distant past when this part of the country was feeding the whole of India. It was rich because of its trade and commerce, because of its rich soil, because of the production of food grains. People thronged to that part for employment, as Odisha is rich with minerals and abundant water forest cover. Andhra, Odisha has a long coastline with vibrant ports. Jharkhand is mineral-rich state with adequate human resources. Bihar has a vast stretch of plains for cultivation and able human resources. Bengal developed its agriculture and has a vigorous MSME sector engaging large number of youths. Yet I would say this part of the country was systematically pauperized during last 50 or 60 years until there was intervention of the union government led by Modi ji. Today, we find policy intervention and greater focus is on the eastern states. Honorable Prime Minister has repeatedly said during last 10 years that the country cannot become fully Vikasit if a region is left unattended, underdeveloped. I congratulate the government and the finance minister for bringing the eastern states into focus of development. Investment on infrastructure will facilitate investment, and investment will generate employment, which will ultimately help in the economic growth of the country. Here I would like to mention, sir, there has been some criticism in my state by the opposition that Odisha did not find place in the finance minister's budget speech. While mentioning about Purvodaya, finance minister has categorically stated, we will formulate, and I quote, we will formulate a plan, Purvodaya, for the all-round development of the eastern region of the country, covering Bihar, Jharkhand, West Bengal, Odisha, and Andhra Pradesh. This will cover, here is the actual issue that is there, the plan that is there before this government. This will actually cover human resource development, infrastructure, and generation of economic opportunities to make the region an engine to attain Vikasit Bharat. These 5 states will be the engine of development of our nation. And today, I may mention here in the other house, there was a question from an opposition member that what are you going to do about the coastal express highway that was supposed to be built? What are you going to do relating to the capital region? This is relating to Odisha, capital region highway or the roadway that is going to be there. And there is a specific answer by the government in the other house. I believe in tomorrow's paper and in today's media, all that will be flashed. My third point, sir, coming to the Polavaram issue also, there was some criticism there. Categorically, I had stated, being a member in the 16th Lok Sabha, Odisha is, or government of Odisha or Odisha people are not against Polavaram project per se. Our concern was relating to the inundation of backwaters after the Polavaram project comes. It's a national project. Adequate funding is now going to be provided for Polavaram. But the concern of Odisha is that adequate measures need to be taken. And the Chief Minister of Odisha and the Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh are going to sit together and settle that matter. It's not a political issue at all. Whatever human intervention is necessary, government intervention is necessary, that will be done by the respective 2 governments together, sitting there and finding out the solution. My third point of deliberation here is how does we focus on forging a new economic strategy? I believe the government will take note of it, what I'm going to mention just now, which is now crucial to counter the challenge to investment and growth by China's muscular industrial policy. Amid rapidly rising trade deficit with China, despite efforts to curb imports and investment in the backdrop of Galwan clash in 2020, some are advocating to attract investment from Chinese companies to boost import. We know that a number of countries such as Mexico, Vietnam, Taiwan, and Korea are benefiting from China plus one strategy pursued by Western firms. The question for us is, if we adopt this policy, will it result in a total movement of trading relations away from China? Should we import goods from China or import capital from China? That is the question. The survey has stated, economic survey has stated that, I quote, to boost Indian manufacturing, plug India into global supply chain.
Madam, one minute,
Yes.
one announcement. I think that we already reached 6 o'clock. The House decides, since there is a long list of speakers in the various parties, we are having consensus that time can be extended up to 8 o'clock. Yes. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Please continue, Mr. Mehta.
To boost Indian manufacturing, plug India into the global supply chain, it is inevitable that India plugs itself into China's supply chain. Whether we do so by relying solely on imports or partially through Chinese investment is a choice that India has to make. The economic survey has posed this question before the nation and before the parliament. And the parliament has to take a decision. And to a certain extent, the finance minister has mentioned it in her speech, not in such clear terms, but the mention is there. So what is the decision of the government? I would like to understand. There are two things prevalent today. One is this China plus one policy. The other is ABC, which means anybody other than China. Why can't we adopt the second option? I believe there is a need to strike a balance between importing goods and FTI from China. Data shows that foreign investment from China hasn't been robust, although Chinese goods has been persistent and has been rising for close to 2 decades. Out of the two choices to benefit from the China plus one strategy, it can integrate into China's supply chain or promote FDI from China. Amongst these choices, focusing on FDI from China seems more promising for boosting India's export. Moreover, choosing FDI to benefit from the China plus one approach appears more advantageous than relying on trade. India has huge ambition in photovoltaic, semiconductor, electric vehicles, and pharma industries. India has robust capacity in steel and yet sees significant imports of cheap Chinese steel. Why are we importing Chinese steel that are flooding our market? China is a dominant supplier in India, including in pharma. Since roads, ports, and rail tracks are not tradable, we make it here, but the rest are falling prey to Chinese industrial policy. If current needs are met via imports, that would rule out investment and depress overall economic growth in our country. To thwart industrial infanticide at the hands of the Chinese state, Indian industry must be spared the price pressure of Chinese imports. The fourth point that I would like to mention here, the country is at a critical juncture, grappling with significant economic challenges. Despite being an accounting document, the budget is more than just a ledger of expenditure and revenue. It is a powerful signal of the government's priorities and policy directions. An estimated 135 million Indians emerged from multidimensional poverty between 2015-16 and 2019-21. This trend is primarily driven by improvements in rural India, with the most major gains in states such as Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Odisha, and Rajasthan. India today is on a track to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal of cutting multidimensional poverty by at least half by 2030. While each of the 9 tracks highlighted in the budget have many areas to appreciate, the focus on employment generation will be a big boost and provide the thrust for the growth of the economy. The support for manufacturing sector, a package for employment generation, and the skilling and upskilling for 4.1 crore youth across sectors are some of the key highlights of the budget. This, coupled with the allocation of 1.48 lakh for education, employment, and skilling, underscores the government's commitment to harnessing India's demographic dividend. The plan to upscale 1,000 industrial training institutes is a pivotal step towards enhancing the skill sets of our future workforce. I am particularly heartened by the allocation of over 3 lakh crore of rupees for women-led development initiatives, including provisions for accommodation through working women hostels, which will greatly benefit women workforce, especially those in the manufacturing industries. The Indian economy's stunning revival from COVID-19 and its emergence as the world's fastest growing major economy is partially attributed to an infrastructural revival spurred by government spending in the past few years. The CapEx budget for financial year 25 has been retained at 11.1 lakh crore or 3.4% of the GDP. A massive expansion in urban housing at an investment of 10 lakh crores and rural roads program with 26,000 crores is a big infra push. Employment generation is real bottom line for Indian industries. Private sector Indian company should pick up the job creation baton from the government and invest in new manufacturing capacities so that the country can complete in its journey to Vikasit Bharat by 2047. Providing employment is not only the job of the government. The private sector also has to join in and play their role. It seems the question on most of our minds has been whether India's new government would work as a Modi 3.0, that is third term for Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, or an NDA 2.0. One was the earlier coalition led by Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji, and this is the second coalition which Mr. Modi ji is leading. I am of the opinion that barring a few sobs for allies, its policy priorities suggest no change in the government's approach. The approach that was there in the interim budget has also been magnified in the present budget, that we have a long-term goal to achieve and we have to reach 2047 as a Vikasit Bharat. This budget is unruffled, as many opposition members have already spoken, as if this government or the party in power is totally ruffled because of the result. The government is totally unruffled and is continuing in its long-term approach. We are not unruffled by 2024 election result. With these words, I support the budget in full term.
माननीय सदस्य श्री रविंदर